Indeed, breaking news. United States President Donald Trump told European partners that he plans to meet in person with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin as early as next week. After that, a personal trilateral meeting between Trump, Putin, and Zelensky will be organized. This information was reported today by the New York Times after Steve Witkoff's visit to Moscow and his talks with the Russian dictator. Later, Fox News reported that Putin was the first to tell Witkoff that he would like to meet with Trump at some point. And after Witkoff delivered this message to Trump, the United States president said he was ready to meet as early as next week if it would help end the war. Later, we'll discuss the prospects of a Trump-Putin meeting, Putin's motives for wanting it, Zelensky's potential agreement to a trilateral format, and Europe's reaction to this. There are some insider details here that we need to talk about together. My name is Pechi. Today is August 6th. Let's review everything thoroughly. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, leave a like, write any comment, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, the New York Times is the first to report that United States President Donald Trump intends to personally meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin as early as next week. And shortly after that, he plans to hold a meeting with Putin and the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. This was reported by two sources familiar with the White House's plans. According to the sources, Trump revealed his plans during a phone conversation with European leaders on Wednesday. Reportedly, the meetings will take place exclusively with these three people, Trump, Putin, and Zelensky, without the participation of European colleagues. As the New York Times writes, European leaders who tried to play a coordinating role at meetings dedicated to ending Russia's war against Ukraine, while also supporting their European neighbor, that is Ukraine, seem to have agreed with Trump's statement and will not insist on participating in the negotiations. This is where the first inconsistency appears to arise. Immediately after the meeting between Witkoff and Putin, Trump called Zelensky, and other European leaders participated in this conversation as well. So it was a negotiation process where not only Zelensky and Trump were involved, but others as well. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, NATO agency Mark Rutte, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and if I'm not mistaken, Finnish President Alexander Stubb. He's actually a close friend of Donald Trump, that's it. After this conversation, Zelensky said, quote, "Right on the way from our brigades in Sumy region, I had a conversation with President Trump. This conversation took place after the visit of the United States Special Representative Stephen Witkoff to Moscow. The common position of Ukraine and its partners is absolutely clear. The war must end, and it must be an honest ending. European leaders also took part in the conversation, and I'm grateful to each of them for their support. We discussed what was voiced in Moscow. We all need a lasting and reliable peace, and Russia must end the war that it started itself. Thank you to everyone who supports Ukraine." Later, Zelensky stated, quote, "It seems that Russia is now more inclined towards a ceasefire. The pressure on them is working, but the main thing is that they don't deceive us or the United States in the details. Ukraine has proposed to its partners to hold a meeting of security advisors in the near future in order to coordinate a common position and a shared perspective." So does that mean Zelensky is still calling for Europeans to participate in the negotiations as well? And as the New York Times writes, it's still unclear whether Putin or Zelensky have agreed to the plan described by Trump. Here's an update with new information. And Fox News reports that Putin was the first to ask Steve Witkoff to ask Trump for a meeting with him. So it was Putin who initiated the attempt to meet with the American president after Witkoff passed this message to Trump. The United States president stated that he is ready for a meeting as early as next week if it helps put an end to Russia's war against Ukraine. And he shared these plans with the European leaders. And here, let me remind you that during the phone conversation where Trump said he was ready to meet with Putin, the participants also included the leader of the United Kingdom, the Chancellor of Germany, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, United States Vice President Jay Divins, Secretary of State Mark Rubio, Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, and President Trump shared details of the phone conversation in a post on the social network True Social, stating that Witkoff spent several hours negotiating with Putin in Russia. But he did not mention his plans for the meeting with Putin and Zelensky. In particular, all that Trump wrote was the following, quote, "After that, I informed some of our European allies. Everyone agrees that this war must be ended, and we will work on this in the coming days and weeks. Thank you for your attention to this matter." But the German publication Bild writes that during the call, Trump told German Chancellor Friedrich Merz that the conversation between Witkoff and Putin was more productive than expected. But it's unclear what concessions the Kremlin rulers are actually willing to make regarding a ceasefire. Let me remind you that Trump was very skeptical about Witkoff's visit to Moscow and even said that there was hardly anything to expect from this visit. But now he says, "I expected less, but it turned out to be more." It's telling that the New York Times reached out to the White House press secretaries of Steve Witkoff, jurist Dr. Wance, and Mark Rubio for comments about Trump's upcoming meetings with Putin and Zelensky. And none of them commented on this topic. Putin's press secretary Dmitry Peskov declined to comment on the matter, according to the New York Times. Trump has been unable to reach a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine for several months after more than 3 years of full-scale war. Trump is skeptical about United States military aid to Ukraine, and earlier this year he sharply criticized Mr. Zelensky at a landmark meeting in the Oval Office, which took place under the close scrutiny of cameras. Nevertheless, frustrated by the slow pace of negotiations with Russia, Trump recently approved additional shipments of weapons to NATO allies intended for Ukraine. For several months, Trump tried to give Putin an opportunity to come to the negotiating table. However, he recently publicly criticized Putin, stating that the Russian leader is simply trying to buy time. After repeated conversations with Steve Witkoff, Witkoff's most recent visit to Moscow took place against the backdrop of Trump's threat to impose secondary sanctions against Russia due to the lack of progress toward peace. So let's see how this Trump-Putin summit will end, if it actually takes place, or if Putin will once again try to buy time by saying, "Yes, I requested a personal meeting with Trump, everything will be decided there, but for now I'm not ready." Let's hold technical talks, preparatory talks, and then some more negotiations. This way they can prolong this story for months more. Unfortunately, there's a chance that Trump might fall for this. He'll say he asked for a meeting himself, first requesting to send Witkoff, which I did, and now he's asking to meet with me personally. So I'll meet with him, and the two of us will definitely sort everything out. Let me remind you, in May, when Putin was talking about being ready for negotiations, Trump said, "Listen, only the two of us, Trump and Putin, can actually solve the issue of this war." Putin is exploiting this, saying he wants to meet with him. We'll see how it turns out. Today, we are waiting for Trump's own statement, and based on that, we will draw certain conclusions. And by the way, subscribe to this channel, because I will definitely do an analysis of Trump's statement in the very first minutes after his address. And together with you, we will analyze it here. I'll put an ellipsis here. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.